Hello, and today we're going to be reviewing the Worx WX025L period 9 20-volt LED work light. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first up we have the battery slot. The battery slot will accept any Worx Power Share 20-volt lithium batteries, and overall it is completely acceptable. There's very little looseness or play to speak of, and the batteries slide into place nice and firmly and securely. You can adapt batteries over from other brands, just remember you do that at your own risk. So yeah, everything here gets a pass. Moving on. Okay, next up we have the strap mount. The strap mount is located at the base of the grip and will allow you to attach a strap. Now, my particular tool came with a strap, but I'm unsure whether or not if that was because I purchased a tool combo set or if they all come with a strap mount, even if you were to buy it tool only. Regardless of that fact, the strap point is very strong and I have zero complaints about how well it works, and I'm glad that they include it. So overall, this is a nice feature to have, and I'm glad they incorporated it into the tool. Moving on. Okay, next up we have the grip. And unlike on some of Worx's other tools, the grip is properly pointed straight forward, so it's not angled upward, unlike on some of their drills or impact drivers from their older generations. Everything else is completely acceptable. The size is great for people with small or medium-sized hands, and even if you have large hands, it should still be completely functional for you. It features a nice rubberized texture on the sides, and the plastic has a nice texture that has been molded into it to allow you to have a better grip on the tool in slippery conditions. At the end of the day, there really is nothing wrong with it, and everything here gets a pass. Okay, next up we have the on-off switch. The on-off switch is located where the trigger would normally be on a drill, and it works just fine. There are two different lighting options. You have the bright mode and then the low mode, and then the off position, of course. If you pull all the way back on the rubberized cover, which is made out of a fairly thick rubber and will just basically cover the switch on the inside, which is basically just a cycle through push button switch, it will achieve a click if you pull really hard, but I do not recommend doing that because I do not believe that is how this light was intended to use. Simply use soft pressure and then you can cycle through the lighting modes from on to off, and that really is about the sum of it. I don't think it's quite as well polished as other lights I have tested or reviewed, but there is nothing majorly wrong with it, so it still gets a pass. Moving on. Okay, next up we have the pivoting head, or tilting head, whatever you want to call it. This will allow you to adjust the head of the light from -5 degrees up to 90 degrees, giving you a fairly decent amount of room to work with. But unfortunately, Ryobi gives you a little bit more room to, well, adjust the head of the light. But it still is better than having a plain static, straightforward head that you can adjust. The other thing about the tilting head is it does feature positive stops. However, it doesn't have enough tension in order to keep the head in place if you have any sort of jerky movement going on. Say you're running, jogging, or driving down a dirt road. So there is a little bit of a disappointment there. If they had had a little bit more tension, this would have made it a far more versatile light in a lot of different situations. But at the end of the day, there really is nothing overly, majorly wrong with this particular design, and like I said earlier, it's better than having a static, straightforward design. So everything here still gets a pass. Moving on. Okay, next up we have the hanging hook, aka the hanging ring, because it's not really a hook because there's no hook part. It's more of a ring. This particular feature will allow you to hang the light from, say, a nail or a screw or a hook, or you can attach a lanyard or rope to it and allow you to hang it that way as well. It is a useful feature, and I'm really glad that they include it because some of the competition does not feature this particular option. So, quite frankly, this is definitely a bonus for the Worx tool. So yeah, nothing else to say here, and it's a nice feature to have. So, moving on. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about this particular light in use and the LED bead. I didn't shoot a whole bunch of extra B-roll for this particular video because I was running short on time this week. So yeah, it is what it is. Now, this particular light is actually fairly impressive when it comes to its purpose. It's more of a light for looking at things in the distance rather than a close-up work light. And if all you're going to do is use this to spot animals that are in your yard or look up in the rafters of your barn, it will be able to fulfill that purpose just fine. It definitely has a focus beam of light, and if you point it at whatever you're working on directly, if it's a small object, it's going to make whatever you're working on very uncomfortable to work on because it's going to blind you. It has two different lighting settings, as I said earlier in the video. The high setting is at 350 lumens and the low setting is at 160 lumens. So it definitely produces more light than the Ryobi equivalent, which will only produce 280 lumens and only has a single mode, which can be useful in certain situations, but for the general public, I would say this is going to be the better option since you have two different lighting options, including the low power options, which will allow you to, well, have a longer battery life. The LED bead on the inside of the light seems to be fairly high quality. I'm not detecting any flickering. And while it does produce quite a bit of light, there is a slight green hue to the color of the light. So if you're trying to mix and match lights from Ryobi, it's not going to be a great match, but it's still better than, say, trying to match a Makita light and a Ryobi light together to produce a adequate amount of light. So yeah, that's about the size of it. It's a good light for looking at things in the distance. If you point it at things close up, it's going to be too bright because it's a focus beam. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. So let's go ahead and move on to the pros and cons. Okay, first up we have 20 volt. 20 volt means that this will work with all your Worx power share batteries, and that you can adapt batteries over from other brands via third-party adapters. Just remember, you do that at your own risk. Strap point. Having a point where you can mount a strap is also a very nice little feature and will come in handy in a lot of different situations, whether it's where you have your hands full or if you just need to hang the light off of something momentarily. This is definitely a useful feature and a pro in my opinion. 2 power modes. Having the ability to switch in between a higher power mode where you can illuminate a larger area or a lower power mode where you can have a longer runtime is definitely a pro in my opinion. Grip. Overall, I really do like the grip on this particular light. As a matter of fact, I like it a little bit more than the grip on the Ryobi light, which is slightly more bulky. So, in my opinion, this is a pro. Hook. Overall, even though it isn't really a hook, it's still a very useful feature, and you can use it for all different kinds of purposes, whether it's hanging it on a hook or on a lanyard or something like that. It's still a useful feature and a pro in my opinion. Tilting head. The tilting head definitely makes this a far more versatile light in a lot of different situations than, say, a light with a fixed position head. So in my opinion, this is a pro. And the first and only meh would be the price. It definitely isn't super overpriced, but it is more than a lot of the competition. But then again, it is less than some of the other competition, so it's just sort of meh. And the first con is tilting head range. While I am glad that they included a tilting head, the range of the tilting head could be improved for a better overall user experience and a more versatile tool. So in my opinion, this is a con. And the next con would be the hue of the light. The light has a little bit of a greenish tint to it, which isn't a huge deal, especially if you're not using the light for any sort of a video project. But if you are using the light for some sort of video project, it definitely is a bit distracting. But it's not that big of a deal. No belt clip. Unfortunately, this light does not feature a place where you can mount a belt clip, which means that it's definitely not going to be at home when you are working on top of a ladder. But you still do have that strap point, so it's not a total loss. And that is it for the pros and cons. Final thoughts on this particular light. While it is technically classified as a work light, it really is more of a, well, look at the thing in the distance sort of a light, or searchlight or spotlight, and it isn't the best option for, well, a work light. But with that being said, that's pretty much the case for all these pistol style work lights, and no matter what brand you buy, it's going to be, well, more suited at looking things at a distance. So when you compare it against the competition, this particular light performs as expected, and there really is no ugly surprises, and it's pretty much the middle of the pack. If you're in the work system, I'd say there's no problem, and go ahead and pick it up if you want a light like this. But if you're in another system, I would say don't bother adapting batteries over to use it. So it really is going to come down to your own personal needs. But as far as this light goes, it comes recommended. And that's it for this particular video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. God bless.